Hi, and welcome to Game On. I'm Mary Ullmann Japhet, board member at SanAntonioSports.
And I'm Jenny Carnes, president and CEO of SanAntonioSports.
And we have a wonderful guest with us today, Andrea Williams, a very newly minted member of the San Antonio Sports Hall of Fame, class of 2024. Andrea, we're glad you're here.
Oh, I am so delighted to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're glad to welcome you home. So, Churchill High School graduate, two-sport athlete, volleyball and basketball. But you always said basketball was your favorite, right?
I know. I think my dad would shame me if I said anything different. But no, it is so excited to be home, to be in San Antonio, Military City, USA. I actually need to, we were just talking about it. I need to be here more often and get back home to see the family and get back out in the community as best as I can. But yeah, I went to Churchill all 4 years. I've got two older siblings that went to Randolph High School back in the day as well. But of the three of us, I was the only one that got to stay at the same high school all 4 years. And love being a Charger and making those relationships and getting to play those sports and be able to be honored with Wanda Bingham, who you guys inducted last year into the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. She was my volleyball coach, and gosh, she put up with me those early years.
And you put up with her.
Oh my gosh, she's incredible. So lucky to have her. And then there's a coach, Tom Anderson, was my basketball coach at Churchill. He unfortunately, I learned, passed away last year, and he was an incredible man and a wonderful mentor too. And so to be back here and to relive those memories, it's just been so special.
What other sports did you play growing up? You've got to have done something besides basketball and volleyball. I played everything. I was a two-sport athlete, but I was probably like 7-sport athlete before I got into high school and college.
Oh, without question. And I think it was just like when seasons change, your sports changes.
Yeah, right.
And well, let me tell you a defining moment in my sports history. So we were living at Randolph Air Force Base. I think I was in first or second grade. So I don't know, that was probably late 70s. And I was playing on the soccer team there. And I also was taking dance lessons. Like my parents were like, you need to have the whole experience. You need to be a good person. You need to make good grades. You need to play all the sports. You need to do all the things, play piano.
Yeah.
And so one weekend there was a dance recital and a soccer game at the same time. And after that weekend, my dad was like, there will be no more conflicts with dance and sport. And that's where it happened. So I ran track. I played soccer. I played softball, basketball, volleyball, anything you name it. My dad was a huge racquetball player. I could not play that sport. He made me take tennis lessons as well when we were at Lackland Air Force Base. And it was so funny because I would wake up on these weekends and the tennis courts, were right there on base. And I would go to these lessons, and for the first half hour, the coach or the trainer would want to do conditioning. And I was like, Guy, I have been playing basketball and volleyball all week.
I'm conditioned. I'm good.
Can you show me how to serve a ball? So a little bit of everything. And, I'm so grateful that I had parents and a family that pushed me to do those things, because I'm not sure I would have been motivated to do it on my own. But because of them, I was able to do it.
I think that's what kids are missing these days. They're not doing more than one sport, right?
Mm-hmm. Like people want them to be specialized and spend all of their time in one sport. And really the other sports lend to you getting better, better coordination, better conditioning.
Fewer injuries.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's such a benefit.
And just to see kids' love of sport ignited across different platforms is great. You hate to see it when a kid burns out at the age of 12, and it happens. We've all seen it. It's not pretty. I've got my long list of your accolades here, so I can kind of keep track of everything. But I just love San Antonio. We're 2 degrees of separation all the time.
Yes.
But you got recruited out of Churchill to play basketball and volleyball at A&M. And it just was, your basketball coach there was somebody very familiar to folks in San Antonio, Lynn Hickey, who's the former UTSA athletic director.
And also Hall of Famer.
And also Hall of Famer, yeah.
Yes. Well, it's actually a funny story. There's a couple of stories, so please bear with me. I grew up when I was here going to the University of Texas basketball camps every summer. So I hate to say it out loud, but I was a Longhorn growing up. And then I ended up playing only 1 year of club volleyball my senior year of high school. And I was playing with Dana St. Laban, these are maiden names, and Susie Winty from Clark. They were all state. They always beat us, unfortunately. And so they're like, you should come to Texas A&M. Come on I had one final fifth school visit, and they're like, you should come to A&M. I'm like, oh, no. I'm not going to A&M. I'm a Longhorn. Get it together. And I'm playing basketball, so certainly no. And they just kept saying, we think that you'll like it. And so finally I was like, I'll just go. And Al Givens was the head volleyball coach at the time. And I just went on a whim for fun and went up there for the weekend, saw a tournament that they were playing in. My parents came to come pick me up, and Coach Givens sits me down in his office and he's like, we'd love for you to be an Aggie. And I said, me too. I'm coming. When I tell you my parents got whiplash looking at me, because we had never really talked about volleyball. We had not talked about A&M. And there was something so special just about the campus. It's the traditions, it's the community, it's the family feel, it's the dog mascot. I love you, Reveille. And I just fell in love with it. So it's really Susie and Dana were the ones that got me to go volleyball and got me to go to A&M. But then that's the story of once I had committed, Lynn Hickey wrote me this, I think it's a beautiful note. She's like, throw it in the trash and get rid of it already, because I still have it as a keepsake. And was like,
I love that.
She was like, welcome to Aggieland. We'd love to have you come out for basketball. Let's talk when you get to campus. And that's really how it happened. So I was very grateful to have Coach Givens and Coach Hickey have that conversation, have that trust, and allow me to play two sports, especially at that level. But when I tell you, I was out of shape. Like I would always miss the first couple of games of the basketball season. And so she would put me in with like the post players for conditioning. I couldn't even keep up. I was so out of shape, but it was a lot of fun.
So you were a 4-year letter winner in volleyball and 2 years in basketball at A&M. So you were not a slouch. You were not a bench warmer. And I remember talking to Lynn for the video. We'll put the link to the video in the show notes for this, for your induction into the Hall of Fame. And she said, she had to fight for her way into the lineup.
Oh, yeah.
Because she always came in late, coming off of volleyball. But you did it, which is remarkable.
Well, credit to her and the coaches and the teammates. I remember Lisa Branch was our starting point guard, and she's out of DeSoto and All-American. And I remember going into a game once, and they called in a play, and I looked at her, and I just had this blank look because I was like, I don't know what that, and she's just like, go right, just go right. So they were very patient with me for sure. But she's right. Like when I would leave volleyball and join basketball, like I was barely on the practice squad at that point. And then I was a long way bench warmer. Then I was maybe you get into a game. And I ended up my freshman year, I went from, never playing, which I shouldn't have been, to starting in our last game of the season. And that was really special. But I had tremendous teammates, many of them that were, have been supporting me with the Hall of Fame. And it's been a great journey.
Oh, that's fantastic.
What was it like playing for Lynn? I mean, I know her professionally, for the last 20 plus years,
the executive.
But as a coach, what was it like playing for her?
Lynn. I'm going to get in trouble.
Was she tough?
No, I love Lynn. So first of all, and you guys all know Lauren Hickey, her daughter.
Yeah.
She's known as Mug. So she was like this little rug rat running around our practices. Lynn was so positive and encouraging and nice, but strong. We had Coach Mack and Coach Feeney. We were scared of them. They were like all defense all the time. So whenever Coach Hickey would go out recruiting, we would all be just scared because we were like, what is practice going to look like today? But Lynn was a joy, and I really love playing for her. But I'll tell you a funny story. So, and she's shared it as well. When she went to Eastern Washington, it was part of the Big Sky Conference when I was there as well. And so we were in an annual business meeting of our athletic directors, commissioner, and other senior leaders. And I remember her we were having a deep conversation, and she's like, Andrea, and I immediately had that sense of get on the line.
I knew she was going to say that.
Get on the line, run the horse. And I was like, oh my goodness. So in that moment, like you just relive everything. But I just have the most respect for her and every opportunity she gave to me and to all of my teammates. So she's special. And I mean, imagine she's known me since I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
And the fact, I turned 50 next month. Happy birthday. The fact that we've been in each other's lives in so many different ways and capacities over the decades, that's what's truly special to me. And I mean, you guys know how wonderful she is.
Yeah.
For For the last 4 decades, San Antonio Sports has dared this community to dream big through the transformational power of sport. For 40 years, we've inspired youth to get in the game, motivated San Antonians to live healthy, been a force behind places to play, and hosted events that impact. As we celebrate 40 years of dreaming big, we invite you to dream big along with us. To support our mission, donate today at SanAntonioSports.org.
I love the segue because I'm a huge fan of you as an athlete, but I'm a bigger fan of you as a professional female in the sports industry. And that's not an easy industry to crack into.
Thank you.
And what you've done at the Big Sky Conference and at CFP and now what you're doing at the Utah Jazz. I mean, let's talk a little bit about that because, you're
just to
incredible.
Set the table, for folks so they understand. So you went from the Big Ten assistant and then associate and then eventually assistant commissioner at the Big Ten, right?
You want me to start over? I will start from the very beginning.
Start it.
You
do it.
At A&M, I was on the 5-year program. So it took me 5 years to graduate. There's no shame in that. People stay in school as long as you can. And then I had about 5 internships, both during school, during college, and then postgraduate.
One of them in TV.
There you go. I did. And you see where I ended up. I did not. I was not as successful as you. And it was funny because I was an intern at the Southern Conference and it was out in Asheville, North Carolina at the time. And then I had an opportunity to go to the Big Ten Conference as an intern. And I remember my mom was like, when are you going to get a real job with a real paycheck and real benefits?
Insurance.
Insurance.
Sounds like my mother.
I know, get out of my pockets. I still like spending my mother's money. And I didn't know, but for something in me that knew, I'm like, something is big about this conference. There's something about the Big Ten brand. I think it's the right move for me. So I ended up going there as an intern, was hired on full time as an entry-level sport administrator. I got probably 5 different promotions while I was there. Then I went to the NCAA
That's right.
And spent a couple of years there. And so again, Lynn Hickey, she was the chair, I think it was of the rules committee. So I was in meetings and still working with her there. And San Antonio, you guys were hosting NCAA championships. So I was coming down for site visits and still having the chance to work with her and other people in the community. So worked with her there at the NCAA. Then the Big Ten had this great idea to be the first conference to launch a network. So got to go back to the Big Ten Conference, served as associate commissioner there for men's and women's basketball tournaments. But then we launched the first ever inaugural Big Ten football championship game. And luckily my boss is there, retired Commissioner Jim Delaney. Shout out to Jim. He's incredible. Love him dearly. He was such a wonderful mentor. Tapped me to run the first ever football championship game. And to me, that's probably one of my most memorable professional moments. And then from there, went to the Big Sky Conference as the commissioner, then college football playoff, then the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
But not just the commissioner. You were the first woman?
And first
African-American woman of a Division I NCAA conference.
In the entire country.
But in 2016, come on, I should never have been, right? And that's what, I take great pride in that. And I feel like there's a great responsibility, but there have been so many incredible leaders, and you know them as well, who came a long way before I did, who were more qualified and had great experience, and they should have been given that opportunity. And so, yes, is it wonderful that, I can say that? But it should have been someone else. But I'm grateful.
I'm not buying that.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I just know there's some amazing women out there, amazing leaders.
Absolutely.
That
it should have happened long before 2016.
Yes. Yeah. Amen. Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah.
But we're glad it was you.
Well, thank you. It was great. Big Sky Conference. It was I moved to Utah sight unseen. Yeah. And it was the most incredible experience. It was magical. And the university presidents I got to work with, the leadership on campus in athletics, I went from living in what I would call like a concrete jungle of Chicago, which I love. Like Chicago's one of the best cities in the world, to a mountaintop in Utah. Like that is completely different, and loved every minute of it. Another fun fact. So I moved and it's just, the office is in Ogden, Utah, which is the first established city in Utah. I think it was like home of prohibition and all the things. And I'm like, I don't know anybody there, but okay. But I remember I mentioned Al Givens, who I signed with at A&M. When he left A&M, he went to Weber State, which is in Ogden. So for some reason, he and I hadn't really kept in touch. So I just reached out. I'm like, hey, I know that you were in Ogden. Any chance like you can help me understand and navigate the space and what to do and if there are things. And he's like, we still live here. So I moved what I think, not knowing anybody in Utah, to living 15 minutes away from my former head coach at A&M. And oh my gosh, the world is so small. I mean, you're talking about 2 degrees of separation here in San Antonio. I mean, the world is so small.
Absolutely. Well, and Lynn likes to tell the story about how you became her boss.
I need to get that on record. That was amazing.
Yeah. Well, you helped. You gave her the opportunity, or gave her the notice that there would be this opportunity, and took her to what was
Eastern Washington.
Eastern Washington. That's right.
Well,
so,
and
all of a sudden, you were the commissioner of the conference that she now was working.
I should have leveraged that a little
bit.
Just remember those wind sprints, Coach. Well, and let me tell you, I think it's a cute story. So the president at Eastern Washington at the time, she was looking for someone, but she wanted to go through the process. She wanted someone that was interim. She didn't want to bring in someone that she was going to hire full time. And I knew Lynn was thinking about like, what was her next steps? Where was she going? And I'd asked the president, I'm like, hey, are you comfortable with me reaching out? And she's like, absolutely. I gave her credentials and I reached out to Lynn. And so both of them were like, the president was like, we want someone interim. Lynn was like, I want something interim. And I'm talking to both of them like, you guys are perfect for one another. Neither of you are going to want to be interim once you get together. And once she got on campus, I got to tell you, I was the hero. I take full credit. Everybody on that campus in the athletic department, like, we love Lynn. Thank you so much. She's such a great, leader and manager. Thank you for bringing her to, so it was a match made in heaven that I knew from looking from the outside in. And I'm so glad because she even raised just the level of our conference just based on her experience as a coach, as an administrator, taking UTSA from FCS to FBS to a bowl season.
Yeah, no football program.
Being from San Antonio, UTSA is where we all hung out. And we would go watch games and do all the things. And to see football be added, that was incredible for our city. And to know that she spearheaded that, and this is someone that I know, love, and respect, that was incredible. And she brought that same energy, that experience to the Big Sky, and incredible people, but she elevated it even more. And so, that's how special she is.
That's fantastic.
So let's talk football.
Yeah, I was
that's where I want to go next. CFP is, even beyond NCAA Final Four, and that you got to be a part of that for, I don't know how many years.
Well, it's interesting.
Talk about that.
So when they announced that they were going from BCS to the college football playoff, I think that was in 2012. I was at the Big Ten conference at the time, and I was like, this is incredible. This is a transformational time in college sports and football. I want to be a part of that. Like, whatever that looks like, I want to be a part of it. And so they had staffed it out. They, Michael Kelly was a COO at the time. He's now at South Florida. Bill Hancock, that just retired, was the executive director. And so they filled out their staff, and, they happened very quickly. So that's okay. But I was like, I still want to be a part of this. And so I started on the Stadium Ops volunteer team. So in 2015, the first inaugural game in Dallas, I'm moving Gatorade. I'm putting T-shirts on seats.
That's how I started.
Yeah, isn't it?
Our people.
It doesn't matter how old we get. We're all still doing all the things.
Yeah.
Right? And it was wonderful. So I did that for a couple of years, and Michael Kelly invited me to be on their advisory board because we were running the football championship game. Fun story. Michael, thank you for your help. When we started the Big Ten football championship game, I would go shadow Michael because he was at the ACC conference and they'd had their football championship game for a while. So they helped build the Big Ten game. It's great camaraderie across sports, as you guys know. And so I did that for the first couple of years. Then I went to the Big Sky conference. I got kicked out. But then Bill Hancock called me in, it was 2018. He's like, would you ever consider? And I was like, absolutely. I'm there. So it was wonderful to even be a part of it. I was like, it didn't matter how I got to support it.
But schlepping Gatorade. You were COO.
Well, I went from Gatorade schlepping to we're all still schlepping.
Yeah, for sure.
That's sports.
I know it is. It's great. But it was a wonderful transition and I was so grateful. But another interesting fact. So my niece, Brianna Gladney, she's an associate AD at Nevada. She had been hired as the incoming intern class at the college football playoff for that upcoming year. And so I was on the phone with Bill Hancock and I was like, hey, I'm not sure you know this, but you've already hired my niece and she's an intern. I said, is there any issue just in terms of nepotism or anything like that for me to even consider the job since she's there? And he's like, oh, no, you're fine. It's great. And my niece, who is just a dream, she went to oh my gosh, Reagan, when she was here. So she spent some time in San Antonio because my sister's also retired Air Force. And she was like, Andrea, she goes, if you're telling me your dream job came available and I was an intern, and if they said it was a problem, you would have said no because of my opportunity. And I was like, absolutely. Yeah. Because she's incredible. She deserved that. And she got there first. Hey, you know what? So, so it was a great transition to that time. And again, and I would say that's a message for people who are out there who are aspiring to get into sports or advance in sport is volunteer, get involved, find ways to get in. Because do I think that being a volunteer got me that COO job? Probably not, but at least it put me close to something that I was passionate about and was interested in and wanted to be a part of.
And put you in front of the people that had...
You say probably not. I say probably.
Yes. Yeah.
You're probably right.
Yeah, well, and it's also that, evidence of team spirit. I mean, we've talked about it many times at San Antonio Sports. We can pretty much tell who's going to stick around and who won't. Because if you're willing to schlep a trash can,
the people that come and volunteer and do those things, and I watch it, and that's who I want to keep. Yeah,
and you learn a lot about people, what they're willing to do, how hard they're willing to work, what hours they're willing to put in. It matters. And when I get it, I actually had someone ask me recently, just in San Antonio, about what advice do you have? And they were in their late 20s and not really in sports, and I was like, you're around here with every sport. I'm like, you've got UTSA, you've got Trinity, you've got Incarnate Word, you've got this San Antonio Sports. Get on these boards, volunteer, get involved.
That's what I say to everybody when they ask me for advice. Volunteer. Show up, get some experience, meet some people, volunteer.
Yeah, exactly right.
Hi. I'm Vince Davis, a journalist here at the San Antonio Express News. It's now time to nominate your 2024 SA Light. SA Light's honorees work selflessly in the community, lifting others through their acts of service, innovation, and collaboration. If you know someone like this, nominate them today at expressnews.com/SA Lights.
Well, you have blazed a beautiful trail, and it, from the outside looking in, it looks like, oh, of course, one thing just led to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And maybe it did, but there have got to have been some setbacks or hurdles. I mean, we all have them in our career. So what were the challenges that you faced and that you see maybe other women face?
Sure. And it's interesting because, I get that question quite often, and it's hard for me to give examples or pinpoint concrete, times where those things happened. But the one thing that really just stands out to me is being the only. And, we actually had a training at the Utah Jazz not too long ago, and they spent a lot of time talking about onlyness. And, when you're in those spaces, especially in a male-dominated field, that sometimes you're the only, sometimes you're the only woman, sometimes you're the only person of color, sometimes you're the only woman of color in those spaces. And so I feel like that has always been the challenge in terms of giving people, especially women who have been marginalized in the past for all the wrong reasons, access, opportunity. We know that when you surround yourself with diverse people, that everything about your business is more successful. And so I think that's probably been the biggest issue. But for me, I had wonderful people around me, managers, bosses, that first and foremost, put my name in places where I wasn't, which was, fun fact. So every job that I got after college, I did not apply for. Someone gave my resume, gave my name, shared my information, my story with the hiring manager, whatever organization I went to. And that is how I was invited into processes or learned about processes. And so, again, that's a tribute to the great leaders that came before me, other folks that were lifting up as they were rising. And so I was the beneficiary of those. And then, I spoke about Jim Delaney, Lynn Hickey. There have been other individuals that have been part of my path that have created spaces and opportunities for me and invited me in and allowed me to sit at tables that maybe I shouldn't have been based on whether my experience or my title. And so I was very fortunate just to have a great support system of those folks that were like, all right, come on, little girl. Even if you don't know what you're doing yet, we're going to make sure that you do. And there was a young man, I think he's the athletic director at Detroit Mercy right now. His name is Robert Vowles. And I think he went to Duke. He was a basketball player. He was the associate commissioner at the Big Ten when I started as an intern. And And one of the things, because a lot of times people are like, well, who is your mentor? And all these, I'm like, sometimes you don't have mentors. You just watch good leaders and you take cues from their behaviors. And one of the things that he did that really resonated with me and made me feel more valued in an organization was whenever we go to meetings or meet new people, he would always introduce me as Andrea, my colleague, Andrea, my teammate. It wasn't Andrea, the intern. And I had experienced that in other places. And that was a huge difference because I felt like, okay, I belong here. I'm even though I'm not at this person's same level, like I feel like I can be a contributor and didn't feel like less than. And so even as I've moved through my career, I've always made sure not to like call people out by their position because we're all just people. We're all working hard. We're all putting in whatever effort.
That's a
teammates.
Yeah, I like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
So that really mattered to me. So the people in my life really made my path that much easier. Now, don't trust me, there's challenges in the work.
Sure.
But in terms of the career path, I was blessed. And I'm the beneficiary of so many people that were looking out for me when I didn't know that they were doing it on my behalf.
Tell us about your current position now that you're in pro sports, not collegiate sports any longer. Yeah, how is it different? And tell us about what the work is that you're doing at the Jazz.
Yeah, so just over 2 years ago, started with the Utah Jazz. They have a relatively new owners, Ashley and Ryan Smith, that took over probably about a year before I got there. They have relatively new president with Jim Olson. He's been with the organization for almost 30 years. Obviously, we have a new coach, not so new, but we stole them from you guys with Will Hardy. And so it's a real transformational time. But part of that was creating this new position. And our ownership group came from a company called Qualtrics, which is all about customer experience. And they were like, we own this team, we own this arena. We want to make sure that someone is ensuring that people who are coming into our building have a first-class, world-class experience. So they created this position, and it was actually a colleague of mine that reached out and said, hey, do you know the Jazz are hiring? I'm like, no, why would I know the Jazz are hiring? And it was this unique position. And again, someone put my name in somebody else's ear, and that's what started the conversation. And so they called it a unicorn position because they did take this idea of experience and then like, what else can this position do? What other gaps or holes that we have that this person can fill? And there's really about 8 verticals that I get to work and be a part of and responsible for over 160 full-time employees. We've got about 420 that are part of the Utah Jazz family. And first and foremost is Delta Center, which is iconic in its own right, working with all things fan engagement. And I love the fact that we can reach out to all of our patrons, whether you're coming in for a Bad Bunny concert, Disney, or a Jazz game. We want to know, like, what was your experience like? What can we do better? And the feedback we get, it helps to frame and shape what we do in the future in real time. And that's wonderful. Also get to help support our G League team, gaming, Jazz youth. So which you guys, you guys are pouring into the youth community here in San Antonio. So one of the things I get to work with, we call it our Jazz youth program. We reach right now 65,000 kids over 6 states, and we are the largest and longest standing NBA youth program in the league, which is a testament to everybody that got there before I did. So that's incredible. And then also get to work with our inclusion and belonging efforts as well, which I love. And there's been so much conversation and a little bit of controversy around DE&I, but I think what people lose sight of is it's about everyone, right? Like the spaces that we're working in right now is we're working with the hard of hearing and the visually impaired, and we're working with veterans, providing space for those who are neurodiverse and people of color and women, and it's everyone. And so if we all just take a step back and realize that we're all here to better one another and support one another, and we're trying to create experiences and opportunities for everyone, I think folks could really rally around what D&I and inclusion and belonging is. And that's a space I get to work in and support. And the lives that you touch, it touches everybody. Like we all know someone who's a veteran, right? And to know that, we all have women in our lives. So to know that we are reaching out and trying to support all these folks, to me, that's beautiful. So I hope that folks come around, understand the opportunities that we have there. So it's a broad range. That was a long answer. I'm sorry. But it's a broad range of things I get to do for the Jazz. And and go to a lot of events, go to a lot of Jazz games. And it's fun. Like our team, they're a lot of fun to watch. And it's exciting. But I'll tell you, we are Oh my goodness, I'm going to get it wrong. So hopefully my teammates back in Utah aren't watching this podcast. But I think we're around 250 or so sold out games over the last few years. And our sales team, ticket team, marketing, they do an incredible job. But obviously it just speaks to just the fandom of Utah and all of the folks there in our community. They love Jazz basketball and they support the team because obviously we had a rebuilding year. And they still come out and the games are electric and the crowd is loud. And so to be a part of something special like that, it's just super cool.
That's great. Yeah. That's really cool. So do you think you want to stay on the pro side or are you
you did ask me what the difference was. I didn't answer the question. I'm sorry.
Are you missing the collegiate?
Oh, I've been watching the collegiate side and God bless our people.
You're probably right where you need to be right now.
It's evolving. And I think it's incredibly interesting and fascinating what's happening on the collegiate side. And it's a challenge because I'm a firm believer in amateur sports, right? Like my dad played basketball and baseball at Tuskegee Institute. My sister still holds a scoring record at the Air Force Academy. My brother played football at the University of Richmond. We all got access and opportunity because of sport. And so when I think about the amateur model, I'm like, I got to go to school for free. I probably got into schools I may not have gotten into. I got to leave the university debt-free. These are all great benefits. And so when I watch everything that's changing and shifting, my hope is that we still put the experience of the student athlete first. And I feel like that's always been the mantra, but it's turning more into a business and that's okay. But I am proud that student athletes have more voices. They have more platforms. And, the fact that we've got the transfer portal and the NIL, like I wholly support those things. They should have the freedom to move. They should have the freedom to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. But it's changing and it's different. So I still keep in touch with my colleagues on the college side and they're amazing. But I would tell you kind of the biggest difference I have seen is going to the pro side is the lack of kind of the red tape and decisions by committee. We will go into meetings, ideate, or our owner will have a great idea and we can put it into action right away. So a less of a, NCAA governance oversight, I feel like is probably the biggest difference. Yeah. And so you can be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more nimble. So that part's a lot of fun. Working in sports, it's like we talk about it all the time. It's a fantasy world. We are so blessed to be part of something that's so special. And I think we've all been in spaces where they talk about sports is the great unifier and brings out passion in people and connection that maybe you would never have with individuals who are so far different than you are. Yeah. So the fact that we get to support that, be a part of it, play it, it's a lot of fun.
It's a great equalizer. Yeah, it really is. Well, we at the end of every one of our podcasts on Game On, we ask our guests what the power of sport means to them, because the power of sport really is what San Antonio Sports is all about. It's transforming our community through the power of sport. That's literally the mission of the organization. So to you, what does the power of sport mean?
It's everything.
Yeah.
And it's hard to even describe or define what that looks like because, as I mentioned earlier, it's been part of the fabric of our family since day one. And the fact that, our parents had the wherewithal to say, this is what sport can do for you. And so not only just did it open doors and opportunities, but we always talk about relationships. And when I think about all the places that I've lived, all the people that I've met, I think about my coaches and my teammates and people that have created these lifelong just relationships. And that you can take through your life. Like you can't take your house, can't take your boat. I don't own a boat. All the things that
not in Utah.
Not in Utah. Well, you have to have friends with boats. That's the goal. And that is really what kind of gives me life and feeds into me are the relationships. And again, you can come from any walk of life and be a part of sport. And it really does introduce you to so many different people from so many different backgrounds. But I've said it so many times, is that sport, because of everything that it's given to me, it is my passion. It is my purpose. I want to give back to something that has allowed me to be here, to be sitting with you all. And to have that be part of my profession is so important. But providing opportunities for youth in particular through sport, it's unity, it's confidence, it's creating leaders for our future. And so I wouldn't be where I am without sport. I wouldn't have the relationships I didn't have without sports. I probably would have better knees if it wasn't for sport. But that doesn't do it justice. And I'm so sorry. I can't even answer your question.
No, that's a beautiful answer.
Sport is beautiful in whatever form.
You just said everything that's in my heart every day. Yeah. That was perfect.
Yeah. It's really terrific. Andrea, thank you very, very much for being a part of Game On, our little podcast here. And we thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Hall of Famer. Game On.
Right.